What's going on, my lovelies? It's Kyle here. So I want to dig into a little clip about Robert Greene. He is the author of The 48 Laws of Power and many other books that explore the shadowy aspects of ourselves and of life, and instead of running away, to accept them and to work with them. And I think this is a very important step, and perhaps first step for those of you who are embarking on trying to work with your shadow and trying to integrate your shadow. So without further ado, I'm going to share this clip and what Robert Greene has to say, and I'll discuss it in depth afterwards. So if that sounds good to you, stick around. But let's watch the clip.
Yeah, I go very deeply into the shadow in a chapter in my last book, The Laws of Human Nature. And I try and talk about how one integrates the shadow because it's not an easy answer for that. You know, people are kind of perplexed. Well, I have this dark side, and I explain a lot of where it comes from and how a lot of your aggressive impulses, like the room of 2-year-olds that you were talking about, you have that as well. I'm talking to the people that I'm my readers. You have that aggressiveness when you were young, and it got socialized out of you, and then it got repressed, and it's like a lost self that lives inside of you and is screaming to come out. How do you integrate it? And so the main thing is you have to be aware that you have this shadow side. You can't run away from it. You have to acknowledge that it exists. You almost
So, the first step in shadow work and getting into shadow work and discovering and integrating your dark side, your shadow side, your darker attributes in a healthy manner. Very important to emphasize, in a healthy manner, is that you first have to acknowledge that you have this shadow side. And I can nearly guarantee most, if not all of you watching at one point in time have had a moment in your life where some pent-up aggression, where some pent-up darkness leaped out of you. It could have been through passive aggressiveness. It could have been through outright aggression. It could have been through rage or your temper or whatever it may be. Now, in this day and age, there's so many people that repress this shadow side, that repress their shadow and their aggressive and their darker attributes. So when it comes out as passive aggressiveness, which is not healthy. I can't think of many examples. I'm sure there are some, but for the most part, it's not healthy to be passive aggressive. It is healthy to integrate aggressiveness in a healthy, proactive, and productive manner. Now, how would this come about? And what are some examples of using aggression? So, A, if somebody is mistreating you, you can stand up for yourself. You can put up a boundary. You can call somebody out in a firm yet hopefully calm manner. Sometimes being calm isn't going to be the best way. Sometimes you need to be a little bit more aggressive, a little bit more forthright. This is very necessary. It's very necessary for those of you who are also, you might have the disposition of being very kind, very warm, very giving, very compassionate, but you are lopsided. You have too much. You're not balancing out that compassion, that empathy, that goodness, that patience with a healthy dose of healthy aggression, of shadow. Essentially, so you can then, and when you integrate these darker attributes of yourself in a healthy manner, you are then able to see in the world at large these shadow aspects in other people. And you're able to respond in a more healthy manner, whatever is necessary. Instead of, I'm sure many of you out there might have this tendency of you get angry and you get angry and you're angry and you suppress until you explode like a volcano. And then you end up, what the hell did I just do? I shouldn't have gone I shouldn't have been intense. I shouldn't have been that rageful. But this is what happens when we repress these darker attributes. Whereas we should healthily integrate them, So then we can utilize them when it is necessary. Because to be frank and to be honest, we live in a world where it is very much necessary. I wish we lived in a utopia. I wish we lived where everybody was enlightened. But we're far ways away from that. And quite frankly, if you come at individuals who are outright sociopaths and psychopaths, and they sincerely don't care about you, they see you as a means to an end to use you, to gain from you, good luck treating those people. I mean, you should have compassion when you interact with those people, but you can't keep giving to them, and you can't be delusional, and you can't be naive in regards to them and their true motives. We need to integrate these darker aspects of ourselves, especially if you're an empath, especially if you're a kind person, especially if you have a tendency to avoid conflict at all costs, to smooth things over when, quite frankly, you should have stood your ground. Quite frankly, you should have called somebody out. If you have these tendencies and you're looking to get into shadow work, and the first step, as Robert Greene is saying here, is that you have to acknowledge that you do have a shadow side, because we all do. And if you don't acknowledge that you have it, you might have repressed this so deep down in you that you need to start digging it up. You need to start lifting it up into your waking, normal consciousness. And you need to start integrating it in a healthy way. So when the time is necessary to see these darker attributes, when somebody is trying to take advantage of you, you can see it more clearly. So you can put up a boundary when it's necessary. So you can be healthily aggressive when somebody is taking advantage of you, taking advantage of a loved one, taking advantage of a random person. If your goal, and all of our goals should become whole and healthy, and so many of us are lopsided. In one direction, some people have way too much shadow, and it's not healthy, and they're very dark, and they're, quite frankly, have a lot of evil within them. And then some people, as Robert Greene has said, has had those shadow aspects of themselves socialized out of them. You might have had controlling parents. You might have had manipulative parents. They might not have tolerated any healthy aggression that's coming out of you. And instead of helping you integrate it in a healthy manner, they might have just pushed that down to the point where you're like, okay, as a child, this isn't worth it anymore. I need to just repress this and not deal with it, because only bad things happen when it comes out of me. So whatever your case is, whatever your story is, whatever your disposition is, you might have a lot of shadow integrated. But it's always best to spruce it up to make it healthy. And if you don't have it integrated, it's best to start bringing it back into yourself in a healthy manner, so then you can express it and utilize it when it is necessary. And even if you don't need to utilize it, you can at least identify it in another person. So you then can stray away like, oh, I see what this person's doing. They're trying to manipulate me. They're trying to control me. They're trying to take advantage of me. So there's a lot of talk in the spiritual community, in the self-help community, to be light, to be compassionate, to be caring. And I 100% agree that should be our primary motives, but we also need a backbone of shadow. We also need a foundation of shadow. We need a balancing point of shadow to balance out that light. And the first step to integrate your shadow, as Robert Greene says, and I want to put this out for all of you, is that you have to acknowledge that you have a shadow side first and foremost. If you say, no, I couldn't hurt a fly. No, I don't. I sincerely don't have any. You can, and you should be able to be aggressive. You should have the capacity for that. And then utilize it in a healthy manner when it is necessary. So if you sincerely feel like, I can't do anything like that, I can't, I sincerely can't be angry, I sincerely can't be aggressive, I sincerely can't hold my ground or call people out, this is my challenge to you. First, to acknowledge that you have this aspect of yourself. And if you can, start trying to integrate that in situations. It's going to feel weird at first. If you were calling somebody out and you hate conflict and you hate standing your ground and you hate all that kind of stuff that involves a shadow side, I hate being angry, I hate all this stuff. I get it. But when it is necessary and your go-to is, okay, just conflict averse, I'm not going to deal with this. Maybe if you identify that it is best to be a little bit of utilizing healthy aggression in this scenario. Now, I'm not saying physical harm. That is a last resort. But in these scenarios, it's going to be verbal. It's going to be socially focused. Right? It might be with a coworker, might be with a stranger on the street, might be with a family member, might be with a friend, whoever it may be. Instead of going the normal route of acting and saying that you don't have a shadow side, you don't have any darkness, start saying, I do. It's somewhere within me. I might not feel as if it's here and integrate into myself, but I need to start integrating it. And in this moment where I normally would have ran away, where I normally would have avoided, where I normally would have let this go, when I quite frankly should have stood my ground and did something a little bit more about it, I challenge you to push yourself a little bit. I challenge you to act healthily aggressive when it's necessary. It's going to feel weird. It's not ideal, but that is part of the growing process. There are growing pains, and that is also going to connect to you integrating your shadow. But first and foremost, as Robert Greene said, you have to acknowledge you have a shadow side. For those of you out there who have a hard time even identifying that you do. Okay, because it's very healthy to have both a shadow and a light side. We need that balance. We need to be whole. So I hope this is helpful. I'm going to keep going and dedicating this channel to shadow work and how it can benefit you. So if that sounds good to you, feel free to subscribe. Feel free to drop a comment. Feel free to like the video. Always appreciated. I hope you have a lovely day wherever you're at in the world. And until next time.